Good day, Deep in Word family. Welcome to day 195 of our Bible study review. Today we're going through chapters 5 through 8 of the book of Zechariah. Now, yesterday we went through a series of visions that Yahuwah was giving Zechariah. Well, chapter 5 opens up with another one. So let's just start reading. It says, "Then I turned and lifted my eyes and saw a flying scroll. He asked me, 'What do you see?' And I responded, 'I see a flying scroll, and its length is 20 cubits, and its width is 10 cubits. He said to me, 'This is the curse going out over the surface of the land. And the surface of the land is Jerusalem.'" All right. And he says, "Everyone who steals will be purged according to the writing on one side. And everyone who swears falsely," right, gives false testimony, "will be purged according to what is on the other side of the scroll." And so this flying scroll represents the commandments, right? The covenant, the wedding vows at Mount Sinai. And we know that one of the commands is not to swear falsely, do not lie, do not covet your neighbor's stuff, right? And do not steal, right? If you're looking to someone else for your provision, you have made someone else your God. Our provision comes from him. So if you're looking at someone else to provide you for what you need, it is wickedness, right? If you've prayed a prayer and you need something and your heavenly Father is the one who supplied it for you, and then someone else comes along and takes what you prayed for that the Father gave to you, it's absolute wickedness. And he says they will be purged from the land, those who partake in these things. Deuteronomy chapter 28 talks about the blessings for keeping the covenant, right? Loving him with all your heart, your soul, your strength, right? That's the first 4 commandments. And the last 6 are how you love the other image bearers, right? Your neighbor. And so when you love him perfectly and love people perfectly, you're filling up the commands, right? Those who fulfill the perfect law of love, there is no law against you, right? We know that. That is what our scriptures tell us. But those who go against the Torah, the commands, the royal Torah, he says there is a curse attached to that. Well, those who are deliberately breaking the covenant vows, the curse is attached to them. We're going to read what he says about the curse of the scroll. He says, "I will send it out," says Yahuwah of hosts, "and it will enter the house of the thief and the house of him who swears falsely by my name," right? They use his name and they swear falsely by his name, profaning his name, right? And not making his name holy, completely set apart in their homes. And it says that this scroll that enters their house, it says it will remain in his house, the one who lies and the one who steals. And it says it will consume it with its timber and stones. Now we know that we are likened to houses, right? He says that this scroll will enter their house and consume everything in it. But this is likened to our bodies, right? If we swear falsely and if we are stealing and if we remain in that place and we do not repent and we swear falsely by the name of our Yahuwah, he says that he will come in and consume everything, right? He is an all-consuming fire. He will destroy those who profane his name. And what do we know about this ultimately? He is not going to let wickedness be in his midst and in his presence. So in the millennial reign, right, those who keep the testimony of Messiah, right, and keep the commandments of the Father, those are the faithful remnant. Those are the ones who he is calling to be his priesthood. But we also know when New Jerusalem comes down, there will be absolutely no wickedness, right? Because at that point, the Torah, the law, will be written upon the tablets of our hearts. We will fully be made over, and no wickedness can enter the presence where the Father is dwelling. So we know this to be true. He says he's going to consume everything. What do our Bibles say before New Jerusalem comes down? It says heaven and earth pass away, right? It passes by fire. He is an all-consuming fire. Wickedness will not be in his midst. All right, let's walk into the other vision that he has in chapter 5. It says, "The angel who was speaking with me came out saying, 'Lift up your eyes and see this that is going forth.' And I asked, 'What is this?' He said, 'This is an ephah basket going forth. This represents their iniquity throughout the land.' The lead cover was lifted, and there was a woman sitting in the ephah basket. And he said, 'This is wickedness.'" And one thing to know about the Hebrew language, wickedness is a feminine noun in the Hebrew language. And that's why wickedness is pictured as a woman. coming up out of the ephah basket. And so it is so interesting when you start studying the Hebrew language, then these pictures and these visions make way more sense. All right, let's keep reading. And it says, and he threw her back into the basket and thrust back the lead stone over its opening. Then I lifted my eyes and saw coming forward 2 women. There was a wind in their wings, and the wings were like those of a stork, and they lifted up and carried the ephah basket between heaven and earth. So the second heaven, all right? The third heaven is where the Father is. The earth is called the first heaven. The airways is called the second heaven. And so that's where they lifted up the basket, all right? Let's pick up at verse 10, and it says, then I said to the angel who was speaking with me, where are they carrying the basket? And he responded, to build a house for it in the land of Shinar. Now, the land of Shinar is Babylon. And when the house is established, the basket will be set there on a pedestal. The house of what? The house of Babylon, the house of wickedness, all right? So we see this from the very beginning, that the first order of rebellion against Yahuwah was found in the land of Shinar, Babylon, the Tower of Babel, which was led by the great rebellious Nimrod, okay? And then we see that who came out of the land of Ur? Abram came out of the land of Ur. That's why he's called Hebrew, because he came from worshiping many gods to worshiping the one true God. He crossed over, right? And then Yahuwah entered into covenant with Abram, right? And he named him Abraham. The Father put his name on him. And then there was a promise that was made to Abraham that through his capital S seed, who is Messiah, all of the nations of the earth would be blessed by him. Abraham is called a father of many nations. That's what his name means. And so we see this whole story when the children of Israel started to rebel. Where did they go back to? They went back to where Abraham came from. They went back to Babylon. And then the Father called them out to come back home. But he's saying, I will carry wickedness away from this land and I will take it back to Babylon. And then in Revelation chapter 18, where is the Father calling us out of? He's calling us out of this spiritual place of wickedness, this spiritual house of wickedness, right? There is a whore of Babylon, right? And he's calling all of his children to come out of her, lest we be partakers in her sins, lest we be partakers in her punishment. I love how our Bible connects from front to back. We see that this is a spiritual wickedness, but nonetheless, we are spiritual seeds, spiritual stones, building up the true house, the spiritual house of the Father. But those who are part of Babylon are building up the house of wickedness. And he says, come out of her, lest I burn you down, right? Lest I consume you in that all-consuming fire in the very end. And now let's open up chapter 6 and we see yet another vision. And it says, and I turned around and lifted my eyes and I saw 4 chariots coming out from heaven between 2 mountains. Now, some of the Bible scholars believe that the 2 mountains are actually the Mount of Olives and Mount Zion. All right. And so we see that there's these 4 chariots coming through 2 mountains. And it says that those mountains are bronze. It says the first chariot had red horses, the second had black horses, the third had white, and the fourth had dappled horses. All of them are strong. Then I answered the angel speaking with me, and I said, what are these, my Lord? The angel responded, these are the 4 winds of heaven, going out after standing before the Adon of all of the earth. The one with the black horses is going towards the north country, and the north country is referred to as Babylon, all right? And it says the white ones are going after them, while the dappled ones are going towards the south country. When the strong horses went out, they were seeking to go to and fro throughout the earth. And he said, go out to and fro throughout the earth. And they went out to go to and fro throughout the earth. Then he cried out to me, look, the ones are going out to the northern land have given rest to my spirit in the north. So these chariots are doing the business of Yahuwah, and they are making sure that justice is going throughout the earth, right? And he sees that these chariots are going towards the north country. And at the very end, it says that the spirit of the Father is at rest. And we know at the very end, right? Babylon, the spirit of Babylon will be conquered. That house of wickedness will fall down completely. And so this is a vision into the future when Yahweh conquers all of his enemies and then gives us rest on all sides. And if these visions still seem awkward to you, they're kind of like muddy waters, please feel free to check out the Bible commentary in the description box below. It will help you out a great deal. Now, in the second part of chapter 6, we see that Joshua, right, the high priest, is about to be crowned. And the word of Yahweh comes to Zechariah, telling him to take 3 men from the exiles. And these 3 men come back with much treasure from Babylon. We know that Babylon was conquered by the Medes and the Persians. And the Medes and the Persians show favor to the Jewish people, right, to the Judeans. And they came back with much riches. Not only did they come back with the articles that were in the temple of Yah that they placed in their defiled temples, but they came back with much silver and gold. So after these 3 men are to bring the treasure of silver and gold and make a crown for Joshua, this is what the word of Yah says. He says, take the silver and the gold and make a crown and set it on the head of Joshua and say to them, thus says Yahweh, here is a man whose name is Branch, for he shall branch out from his place and he shall build the temple of Yahweh. It is he who shall build the temple of Yahweh, and he shall bear the glory, and he shall sit and rule on his throne. He shall be a priest on his throne, and counsel of peace shall be between them both. So we see Joshua, right, is a picture of our Messiah, because there was no one who could be a king and a priest and do both duties, right? Joshua's true name in the ancient Paleo Hebrew is Yahoshua. It's the same name as our Messiah. So Joshua is a picture of what our Messiah would come to do, to be king and priest. Melchizedek. Traditionally speaking, if you were going to be the king over all of Israel, you had to come from the kingly line of David, which is through the tribe of Judah. And if you were going to be a priest, you had to come through the bloodline of Aaron, the Levitical bloodline. But the Levitical priesthood was not meant to last forever. It was meant to point to the ultimate high priest, who is Yehoshua or Yeshua, right? So the Levitical priesthood was a work unto the tabernacle, which was a pattern, a copy of the true tabernacle in heaven. And where did our Messiah sprinkle his blood on? He sprinkled his blood upon the mercy seat in the highest tabernacle. The one on earth was just a copy of the real deal in heaven. And our Messiah, our high priest, is doing a work in the heavenlies right now. Every time that Satan goes to accuse the brethren, our Messiah points at the blood on the mercy seat and he says, not guilty. They are mine. This is my priesthood, and what I started in them, I'm going to finish. I hope that you're starting to see the full picture of the job of our Messiah. He is the high priest, and he is sanctifying and consecrating his priesthood right now. But during the millennial kingdom, he is going to write the law upon the tablet of our hearts. He is going to do such a great work in us because he's called the author and finisher of our faith. He's going to make us completely faithful so that we can truly bring glory to the Father forever and ever. Once he is done making us absolutely just like him, exact copy of the image of the Father, right? We are being molded in the image of Christ right now, but that work is going to be perfected 10 times more during the millennial reign. So much so that when he's done with his work with us, then the Father comes down. Our Messiah's job is to completely save us and make us over into the image that the Father planned from the very beginning. The first Adam was created to be a priest unto the Father, to bring him glory. But Adam messed up and gave his authority over to Satan. And that's why Satan goes to accuse the brethren day and night, because he does not want us to realize our full potential. He does not want us to realize our need for our high priest, because he is the one, he's the only one who could make us over and then offer us back to the Father. Once Messiah is done with his work with us, we will be made perfect, completely whole, completely set apart, completely holy. Then he can present us back to the Father. There is a great work that our high priest, our king and high priest, still has to do in our lives. And much of that takes place during the millennial reign. And right now, our hearts are being tested. Is this what we truly want? Do we really love our Messiah? Do we really love our high priest? Do we really respect and honor the work that he is trying to do within us? Because he is doing everything that the enemy has undone. He is trying to take us back to that place in the garden, that place of perfection. Adam was made perfect, but he sinned. And the second Adam is coming to restore us back to that whole image. Oh, I hope you see why I'm so passionate about the priesthood, because that's who you are. That's what you were called to be. That's what he is working on the inside of you right now. One more thing before we move on, because this is the qualifications for a king over all of Israel. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 17. Let's start reading from verse 14. When you have come into the land which Yahweh your Elohim gives you, and possess it and dwell there, and then say, I will set a king over me, just like the other nations that are around me, you must set a king over you whom Yahweh your Elohim chooses. Now let's go to verse 18. It says, it must be when he sits on the throne of his kingdom that he shall write a copy of this law for himself on a scroll before the priests and the Levites. But we know that our king, he is the Torah who put on flesh, and he will also serve as high priest. And it says it must be with him, and he must read it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to fear Yahweh his Elohim. Now, this was the instruction for the earthly kings, and our Messiah will be the earthly king during the millennial reign. But make no mistake, he is the Torah who put on flesh, and he's going to be speaking the Torah from Mount Zion. He's going to be teaching his priesthood and the rest of the nations the righteousness of the Father. And during that time, the law will start to be inscribed upon the tablet of our hearts. That's the copy that he will be writing. It will be on our hearts, his priesthood. Feel free to check out another video from my brother Mark from Kingdom Story Films. He speaks about this as well, and it's a beautiful illustration of what our Messiah is called to do. His ultimate work is to restore us, to restore the kingdom, and to restore all of the earth to this perfect place so that the Father can come down and dwell with us. That's why the body has to stop saying that the law of the Father is done away with. That is a lie from the pit of hell. That law will be written upon the tablet of our hearts. All right, let's finish out chapter 6 of Zechariah. So it's talking about the crown that goes on top of Joshua's head. And this is a picture pointing to our Messiah. And it says, the crown shall be for a memorial to the three men, right, who brought the tribute to make the crown. And I hope you're seeing this again. It says that we will be given crowns, but we will throw it at his feet. I hope you're seeing it. In Revelation chapter 19, when our Messiah cracks the sky, right, and he's coming to set the kingdom here upon the earth, it says that he shows up with many crowns on his head, right? And so this represents the work that we are doing, and we're bringing tribute to the king. Remember, when all of the other nations would come up and see King Solomon, none of them came empty-handed. It is a shame to appear before a king empty-handed. Why do you think our Messiah talks about talents and multiplying talents, right? Our lives should be a living tree of fruit. We are called to bear much fruit for the kingdom, so that when we finally are gathered unto him, we have multiplied his kingdom, right? So this crown that's on Joshua's head, it's going to be a memorial in the temple of Yah. All of our work is a memorial in the true house of Yah. Our lives should be a walking, talking testimony of the work that he's doing on the inside of us, right? So the one who has one talent, right? He's called to multiply it. And the one who takes the talent and buries it in the ground, our Messiah calls him a wicked man. He says, take the talent from that man and give it to the one who's going to multiply. Man, I hope y'all are seeing what seems like an endless amount of connecting dots right here. It says, and those who are far off shall come and help build the temple of Yah. You were once far off before you were made near by the blood of Messiah. Come on, that's another connecting dot. And you shall know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. This shall happen if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh, your Elohim. Come on, y'all. This is a covenant A covenant is between two parties, and both of them have to be willing. Our king and high priest was willing. He laid down his life so that he may give us life and life more abundantly. But we have to say yes, and we have to start walking in his righteousness. Our identity is in him. Our power is in him. Our calling is in him. He's the high priest. We are his priesthood. We have to see this. We are nothing. We can't do a thing outside of Christ. He is life. He is where the power of the Holy Spirit dwells, right? It is now him who lives in us, and we have to be willing to let him do that work within us. We have to crucify the flesh. We have to be in agreement with him, and we have to disagree with our former covenant partner who was Satan. That's why he's fighting. That's why he goes up. That's why he accuses you, because that's who you were in covenant with before you came to Messiah. Whether you were aware or not, that's who your covenant partner used to be. All right, y'all, now let's walk into chapter 7. Now we see that in the 4th year of King Darius, in the 4th day of the 9th month, which is Kislev, the word of Yahweh came to Zechariah again. And it says, those who were in Bethel sent 2 men inquiring of Zechariah to inquire on behalf of Yahweh, asking, shall they still mourn in certain months? These were the 5th and 7th months. And what happened during this time? It was the complete destruction of the first temple before they were dragged off to Babylon. So while they were in Babylon, that's what they were doing. They were fasting and lamenting over the destruction of the temple. And so they're asking Yah, shall they continue to do this now that they're building the second temple, right? And the second temple is not completely built up yet. And so Yahweh responds to them through Zechariah. And it says, the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, say to the people in the land and to the priests, when you fasted and lamented during those months, did you do it for me? In those 70 years when you were dealing with the punishment of your perpetual backsliding, were you fasting because you were detached from me? Or were you fasting because you were detached from your false hope in the temple? And he also says, when you ate and you drank, did you not do it for yourselves? Was this not the very thing that I was sending a word through the prophets to speak to those who were inhabiting the land before they went off to their exile? Did I not tell them to repent? Did I not tell them to return back to me? But they kept doing their wickedness while still offering me their empty sacrifices in my house. Essentially, Yahweh is like, I'm commanding you to come back and remain clean, remain pure of heart, and build up this second temple, right? And he's like, I'm giving you another chance to do what your forefathers would not do. Let's pick up in verse 8. And the word of Yahweh came to Zechariah, saying, thus says Yahweh of hosts, execute true justice, show mercy and compassion, every man to his brother. Do not oppress the widow or the orphan or the sojourner or the poor, and let none of you contemplate evil deeds in your heart against your brother. He's like, this is what I called your forefathers to do from the beginning. This is the real reason why they were sent away. This is the reason why the temple was laid waste. Verse 11, but they refused to pay attention and turned a stubborn shoulder and stopped their ears so that they should not hear. They made their hearts hard like a diamond, so as not to hear the instruction and the words of Yahweh of hosts, sent by his spirit through the former prophets. And there was a great anger from Yahweh of hosts. Verse 13, therefore it happened that as I called and they would not hear, so when they called, I would not hear them either, says Yahweh. So I scattered them about among the nations whom they did not know. So the land was left desolate behind them, with no one coming or going. And they made a desirable land desolate. And so Yahweh is basically saying, quit with the shenanigans. Just be faithful. Execute justice. Do what they did not do, and all will be well with you. When you cry out to me, when you pray because your enemies are coming against you, he says, I will hear you because you are executing my words, right? If you are doing my word, it means you are adhering to my instructions. You're listening to me. But if you're not listening to me and then you pray and call out to me, he says, I will not hear you. So there is no further need to fast and mourn for the destruction of the first temple. He's like, you're given a second chance to do what they did not. So do the right thing. How many people do you know go through the motions and they go through a fast, right? Just because their church is doing a fast. But as soon as the fast is over, they go right back to doing their wickedness. They go right back to living in the flesh. They go right back to offending the Spirit of grace. The Father has had enough of that religiosity. He wants you just to remain faithful. He wants you to be true. He wants you to walk in the pattern of Messiah. He wants you to walk by the Spirit and not by the flesh. All right, let's get into chapter 8. And the word of Yahweh came to me saying, Thus says Yahweh of hosts, I am exceedingly jealous for Zion, and with great wrath I am jealous for her. So he's talking about his holy land where he has put his name, all right? He's like, put some respect on it. And he says, Thus says Yahweh, I have returned to Zion, and I will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem will be called a city of faithfulness, and the mountain of Yahweh of hosts, the holy mountain. This is a picture of the future, right? Our Messiah is going to do a great work during the millennial reign. And we know that at the completion of his work, right, the author and finisher of our faith, once he's done, then the Father comes and dwells with his people. Now, I believe full-heartedly that the Father's presence, right, will hover over Zion during that time. And it says that his eyes, right, and his presence will be like a firewall around the city. So his presence will be there, but he will not be there completely until New Jerusalem comes down. Now let's read about verse 4. It says, Thus says Yahweh of hosts, older men and women will sit again in the streets of Jerusalem, each having a staff in his hand because of advanced age. And the plazas of the city will be filled with young boys and girls playing in open places, right? So Jerusalem, after they fell, they really didn't know a time of peace where people would grow so old that they would have like a Moses staff in their hand. And then little children playing out in the open without the fear of someone coming to take their child or the fear of war and all of these things. During the millennial reign, there's just going to be this time of peace, and people are going to live up until 1,000 years if they are faithful. And he is showing these images of this again. Let's pick up in verse 6. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, if it is marvelous in the eyes of the remnant of his people in these days, will it also be marvelous in my eyes, says Yahweh of hosts? He's like, can you even imagine this time of peace? Will it be marvelous to you? He's like, how much more marvelous will it be to me when my people are made over? Verse 7, thus says Yahweh of hosts, I will deliver my people from the eastern lands and the western lands, and I will bring them, and they will reside in Jerusalem, and they will be for me as a people, and I will be for them as Elohim, with faithfulness and righteousness. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, let your hands be strengthened. Whoever is hearing these words in these days, this is for you too. And he says, from the mouth of the prophets who were there in the day that the house of Yahweh of hosts was founded, that the temple might be built. For before those days there were no wages for a man, nor a hire for an animal, and there was no peace from an enemy for any of him who went out or came in. For I set every man against his neighbor. But now I will not be as in the former days against the remnant of this people, says Yahweh of hosts. So what is Yahweh saying? When they came back from their Babylonian exile, right? There's not a lot of riches. They don't have money. But he's saying during the future, at that time, it will not be so. So he is encouraging them to build upon what they have at this moment. And the Father is speaking the same thing to us right now. Our Messiah is the foundation for the spiritual house being built up right now. And he has blessed us with every spiritual gift to increase the kingdom, right? To bring forth, right? Somewhat of a tribute. We are to bring gifts to the King. We shall not show up empty-handed before the Messiah. That will be a shame to those who say, I'm saved, I can live life however I want, and then they show up before the Messiah empty-handed. All of the kingdom citizens will see that shame. You don't want to be a part of that. Let's pick up in verse 12. For sowing will be done in peace, and the vine will produce its fruit, and the ground will provide its produce, and the heavens will give their rain. This is talking about the millennial reign. And I will cause the remnant of this people to inherit all of those benefits. And as you have been like a curse among the nations, O house of Israel and house of Judah, I will deliver you, and I will be a blessing to you. Fear not, and strengthen your hands. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, just as I have determined to punish you when your fathers enticed me to wrath, says Yahuwah. I did not relent. So again, I have purposed in these days to do good to Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Do not fear. These things you will do. He says you will speak truth to your neighbor and make judgments in your gates that are for truth, justice, and peace. He says, you will do this. And he says, I'm the one who's going to cause you to do it. And he says, let none of you consider evil plans in your heart against your neighbor, and do not love false oaths, for I hate all of these things, says Yahuwah. And then the word of Yahuwah comes back around to Zechariah, addressing the question of these people. Should they fast and mourn during these days, right? During the 5th and the 7th months. He says, no, during these months, moving forward, he says, instead of fasting and mourning and thinking about the things of the past and how you messed up, he's like, no, I'm going to restore you. And this is going to be a great time of rejoicing and feasting. Let's pick up in verse 20. Thus says Yahuwah of hosts, people will still come, even those who live in many cities. Those who live in one city will journey together with one another, saying, let us surely go and seek Yahuwah of hosts. I myself am going. Many peoples and strong nations will seek out Yahuwah of hosts in Jerusalem and entreat the favor of Yahuwah. Guess when they're going to come up and do that? They're going to do that at the Feast of Tabernacles, right? So the way that the people are going up to Zechariah to entreat the Father, they're going to come up to Messiah to entreat the plans of the Father. And our Messiah is the word of the Father. He is the Torah who put on flesh. So they're going to inquire of the Father, and our Messiah is going to be able to rapid fire spit it from his mouth to the people. They're going up to inquire of Yahuwah through the Messiah. That's what's going to happen, and we're going to read that in the very last chapter of Zechariah. But let's finish out the chapter. It says, thus says Yahuwah of hosts, in those days, 10 men from every language of the nations will hold on to the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that Elohim is with you. And so, yes, this says during that time that many nations, many peoples will grab onto the garment of a Yahudim and say, look, I know that your God is mighty because it's evident in your life that you are blessed. And so they grab onto the garment of a Yahudim and they go up to the mountain of Zion to inquire of the Elohim, right, of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this could also represent us, right, being his priesthood, and we will have those supernatural bodies, and they will see that during the millennial reign, and they'll be like, let us go up with you. We know that your God is real because you're the evidence of that. So let us go up with you. These chapters breathe life into the truth of what is coming. Our future is in these promises, and this is a glimpse of what is to come. And we know that we can trust his words. His word is established firmly in the earth. Everything that he said would happen in the past, it happened. He always prophesies of what happens before it comes to pass. And we know we have biblical and historical accounts of what he has spoken through his prophets have come to pass. So those things that have not yet come, we know we can trust his words because he has already proven himself. I hope that the book of Zechariah is getting you excited because I'm excited while reading it and deliberating. Although chapter 8 is closing out today's chapter study review, there's more excitement to come tomorrow and the next day. So just hold tight until we get there. Deep and Word family, that's all that I have for you today. Until tomorrow, Yah bless.